Nigeria's Debt Management Office has released new data on the debt levels of Africa's largest economy. Total public debt stock comprising the debt obligations of the federal government, states, and federal capital territory rose from 39.5 trillion in December 2021 to 41.6 in the first 3 months of this year. Debt to GDP there, 23.27%. The ceiling, of course, is at 40%. And there's the revenues for January through November, 5.51 trillion naira, up from 3.96 in 2020. So what will the new presidential candidate of the ruling All Progressive Congress do about Nigeria's debt? Bola Tinubu emerged as the candidate of the APC, and ahead of the primaries, his Director of Media and Communications, Bayo Onanuga, released his economic agenda. So just like we did with the presidential candidate of the PDP going through his economic agenda, that's Atiku Abubakar, we're now, of course, going to go through the economic plans of Bola Tinubu of the APC. Joining us now, Arise Business Analyst Chika Mbonu, and any moment now we should have Abayomi Fawehinmi as well. Chika, good morning to you. You're very, very welcome.
Morning.
Interesting times.
Let the game begin.
Let the games begin. Let the games begin, indeed.
Interesting times for our country.
Very much so. Very much so. So let's put it up. We've got a litany of plans here from the flag bearer of the All Progressive Congress. I believe his first point is 12% GDP growth. For 4 years, okay, we'll have that up any moment now. But Chika, there it is. So Chika, we'll just start from the top. What do you make of that?
You know, whenever I analyze things in this program, I tell you that the economic issues of our country, the items actually are in sync. They relate to each other and complement each other. And so we're talking about GDP growth, how.
Yeah.
And so GDP grows for our viewers. Now, GDP represents the monetary value of the goods and services produced in a geography like Nigeria over a certain period, usually a year or a quarter, as the case may be.
Yeah.
So when we talk about GDP growth, and so GDP, when GDP is growing, it talks about the growth in the economy. That the economy is expanding, and the economic output is getting better.
Yeah.
And so, tied into that, therefore, must be what? Unemployment must be low.
Right.
Employment will be high because output is high.
Exactly.
Inflation will be what? Low. Exchange rate will be moderate.
Yes.
And will not subject to vagaries. So all must sit into the basket.
Yes.
We have talked about consistently that our population growth, and this is why this is important.
Yes.
This project is important. The population growth in the country is about 3%.
Yes.
Or thereabout. And our GDP has been struggling at below that. Therefore, the relevant ratio is a GDP per capita.
Yes.
So even though GDP may be growing, as far as it's slower in growth than the population growth, we're actually getting poorer. So it's putting the GDP growth at the 12% range is very acceptable. Is acceptable.
Okay.
Now, but as I said before, the issue then, what are the variables that support the GDP? This campaign initiative, campaign promise.
Yeah.
What are the things that support it? How the GDP grow?
Yeah.
How I thought about in this program when we're talking about other candidates. I said, for us in this election cycle, we're more concerned with the how.
Right.
Because anybody can recycle election promises.
Right.
That will not happen in this cycle. So on the GDP growth, that's what a country requires.
Yeah.
Consistent GDP growth, it says in 4 years. So this right speech, but the issue is how.
I think we have the average GDP growth of the past presidents from 1999 up until date, Chika. And I guess looking at how they've performed, so Olusegun Obasanjo, he did 6.9%. Yar'Adua did about 7%. And of course, Yar'Adua tragically passed away. Only had a couple of years. Goodluck Jonathan, 4.8%. This present administration, he has had 2 recessions. I mean, is 12% possible, Chika?
See, we also talked about in this program.
Yes.
We have lamented in this program several times about the very simple things we're not gotten right in our economy. The amount of leakages that happen in our economy.
Yes.
Now, and I've said that if Nigeria, we are a human being.
Yes.
the amount of blood that have been, that's leaked from our body, would have died a long time ago.
Right.
And so, even working on that premise that you want to get the leakages right, do remember one of the things we had here, that the refineries, Port refineries, for example, and water refinery, have not produced a single liter of fuel in the last 3, 4, 5 years.
Right.
Yet they have spent billions of naira on expenditure. You can imagine that leakage. You know? Remember also that one of the things he thought about, that's why all this was tie up, was he thought about that he's going to eliminate subsidy.
Yes, that's what he said.
Eliminate subsidy. That's
part of his plan.
You can imagine 4 trillion thrown into our GDP.
Right.
You already know what to do to our country.
Yes.
So I'm saying that, yes, getting this, there's so many simple things that we can get right in our country. And execution, diligent execution is what we require. It's like whoever is the president should fly Nigeria as if we're playing under crisis, they're playing in turbulence.
Right.
And when they're playing in turbulence, the whole pilot, the co-pilot, everybody, the crew, and focused on that to pull us out of that turbulence before you can start enjoying your champagne and so on and so subsequently. That's what the country requires. So if Bola Tinubu, as I said here, this is doable.
Okay.
It's doable because the leakages are so many.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chika. Okay. I think we have Abayomi Fawehinmi with us now, human resource executive, also an entrepreneur. Abayomi, thank you. You're very welcome. Okay. So we did this with Atiku, with the both of you. I want to get your take. I don't know if you want to comment on the GDP growth or power. Maybe I should throw power to you. He's promising 15,000 megawatts, 24/7 power. What do you make of that? Are you an optimist in that regard?
Leaders are supposed to be dealers in hope. So every leader is supposed to be able to sell hope. I mean, that's why perhaps Hope 93 of late MK Abiola was something that resonated with people. Promising power 15,000 megawatts and 24/7 supply is a good goal we can have as a nation. It's an aspirational goal. I think one issue that we need to also accept, and one of the things we need to interrogate with the politicians, is when is this going to happen? I mean, so if this candidate becomes president and wins a 4-year term, it will not get 24/7 supply in the first year. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen in the second year. The most likely earliest date, if we assume that nothing happens between now and when he gets sworn in, maybe in his 3rd or 4th year. So one of the things we need to also start to interrogate is to understand the time implication. One of the things, if you see what you are showing at the moment, which are all the economic plans of this candidate, virtually all of these candidates' plans requires him to spend a lot of money. And that is one significant change between his own plan and the plan of the candidate we reviewed the last time, who was more looking at things from the point of view of policy and approvals. How does somebody, for example, say is going to ensure that there is 24/7 electricity? You're not going to make that happen in your first year. You have also shown a couple of things. How can somebody have an economic agenda and it is to mean, and you say you want to eradicate university lecturer strike? That is not an economic agenda. Because in the scheme of things, currently in Nigeria, there are 4 unions on strike in Nigerian universities. ASU is on strike, NASU is on strike, SANU is on strike, and then you have the technologies are on strike. How do you then start to create some element of exclusion and say you want to eradicate strike? That cannot be an economic program, because that a strike is a response to a problem. So the problem is what you should first focus on. So talking about power is possible. It's something that we can do if we really focus on. What I know is that we can't get it done in the first 2 years, but it's a good goal. It's a good ambition, and it's something that can make happen. 24/7 electricity is something that I know we will not achieve in the first 3 years, despite any investment we want to have, because as we currently speak in Nigeria, we don't even have coverage for the whole nation. The national grid, some people don't still have it till now. We know for a fact that a state like Bayelsa State, just a couple of decades ago, did not have national grid connected to the whole state. So for us to get every Nigerian household have access to electricity at 24/7 is not a 4-year promise. I mean, we need to be we need to be realistic in our ambition. Okay. But this is a goal that can be achieved if we focus on it.
Okay. Okay, fantastic. Chika, let me bring you back in. Infrastructure, I think he's Tinubu's plan there. He says it has a new infrastructure plan. He even has a plan on 6 new regional economic zones. What do you make of that?
See, I have said consistently that Nigeria does not lack plans.
Right.
What we have lacked consistently has been the lack of diligent implementation. Conscientious effort, taking ownership as if it is my own.
Right.
Starting from the CEO, who happens to be the president, and then a competent, economic team that sing this from the same hymn book, with him. So it permeates everything that he has here.
Yes.
And whether it's power or whether it's agriculture, whether it is subsidy and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
The issue has to do with how conscientious. Now, the difficulty in running this kind of campaign is going to run is also he's running from the ruling party's perspective. And so a lot of things he's going to say may be an indictment on the 1 year remaining
of the present
administration.
Right.
Because one of the things I would notice also in the government that is going to live in the next 1 year, less than 1 year,
yes,
is the fact that sometimes we will find that the teams are speaking, are not singing from the same hymn book.
Yes.
And people are singing, remember sometimes one minister be quarreling with another minister and and people are fighting for tops and so on and so forth. That is one thing, a critical sort of factor for a Tinubu administration, if it's him that's going to be get the crown finally.
Yes.
So specifically, therefore, whether it's power, whether it's GDP, whether it's what's the item you mentioned now?
Infrastructure,
agriculture, whatever. It has to do with conscientious implementation, execution, class A, the competent team to run it. Because this issue of 6 geographical zones of economic goals, they have been mooted. They've been on the table.
Yes.
We know what Nigeria used to be before. And we'll say that to migrate Nigeria to the economy of the future, we need to move from just not producing cocoa seeds, but also producing chocolate.
Right.
Are you with me?
Finished goods.
Finished goods.
Yeah.
And so we need to move to that. And so every section of Nigeria, we have the report, has something to contribute to the national economy, to produce. I've come here to lambast a lot of the governors that most of them are not doing anything.
Yeah.
Sadly, every section of Nigeria, every geographical zone of Nigeria, each of the 6 geographic zones has something to contribute to the economy. And so the diligent implementation of this economic policy, Nigeria will be the better for it. So it's not the plan, it's not what they're written, but the issue again is what?
Execution. Fantastic. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Abayomi, I want to get your take on his education budget allocation after the break, so we'll just stay tuned. We'll be right back. It is the Global Business Report here on Arise TV. Welcome back to the Global Business Report here on Arise TV. We're still discussing the economic agenda of the flag bearer for the presidential post for the All Progressive Congress, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. We have Chika Mbonu, Arise Business Analyst, Abayomi Fawehinmi, Human Resources Professional and Entrepreneur. So Abayomi, let me throw it to you now. On the agenda, he wants to allocate, I think it was 25% to education. I think currently it's under 10%. What do you make of that plan?
It looks like an interesting thing. Many people will get excited by it, but I am not, for 2 reasons. This candidate is somebody that has a precedent. He was governor in Lagos State for 8 years. And we know he did not allocate 25% of the budget to education in Lagos State for the 8 years while he was there. We have data that shows what he allocated to education. So historically, he never did this. So talking from the point of view of antecedent, he won't do this. Now, talking from the point of view of the constitutional expectation of the federal government, this is the president of Nigeria who is going to be the leader of the executive federal government. The statutory role of the federal government in education is policy, oversight and governance. In terms of provision, the only level of education that the law asks the federal government to be involved in is tertiary education. Basic education is in the hands of the local government and the state government, tertiary education to vocational education. So there is no way any federal government of Nigeria will dedicate 25% for tertiary education. It will be a waste of funds. And that's a fact we need to accept. The bulk of where we have the educational challenge we have in Nigeria today is at the basic level. And therefore, if anybody is promising to devote the federal funds to education, which statutory is supposed to only be for education, that person will not do it. However, what is he may be saying, because it's also good for us to be fair to this candidate, is the aggregate contribution of the government to education. So by that we mean it will stimulate and encourage the local government and the federal government to contribute a total government contribution to education as 25%. That is something that is already possible. And everybody says is that Nigeria contributes 10% to education. That is not correct. Nigeria contributes well over 10% to education. Actually, today, nobody knows how much the government of Nigeria contributes to education, because people focus on the budget of the Federal Ministry of Education, not the education budget of the federal government of Nigeria, or the government of Nigeria. Let me shock you. You will be surprised that the police has as many primary schools more than the Federal Ministry of Education. The number of schools in the defense budget is more than the number of schools in the budget of the Federal Ministry of Education when you talk about basic education, for example. So nobody has, and I remember former Minister Okoje was trying to aggregate this fund. We still don't know how much the government spends on it. So the idea of spending 25% will not be strategic spending, because one of the things we need to ask ourselves is, if you do 25% in education, you are going to cut from somewhere. Where are you going to cut from? Is it security or infrastructure? I don't think that is something that's going to happen. The second promise he has there is related to the question of strikes. I mean, like I said earlier, strike is a response. Your goal cannot be to respond to a response. What we should have as a strategic plan is what will prevent a strike. And of course, it's about doing something about the structure of education. Please permit me, let me just make a comment to the last question you asked my colleague in the studio about related to 6 zones for development. And I like the point he makes. We need to make 76 centers for economic development in Nigeria. But again, it's also a strategy that we need to start to interrogate and ask ourselves. In the 3rd and 4th development plan, the idea of River Basin Development Authority was introduced as a strategy to provide regional development. Benue, Niger, all of those things were done. We know today what has happened to them. By the turn of the democracy in 1999, the Obasanjo came up with the idea of development agencies that led to NDDC at the first instance. We know what has happened to NDDC. We know what has happened to the one in the Northeast. We know what has happened to all the state-created economic agencies, what they call the PADEC, also PADEC, the SOPADEC, the Delta State, also PADEC in those states. What has happened is that the attempt of the federal government to create this structure have always led to tensions. So we had under the 1999 regime, where, for example, Donald Duke, the governor of Cross River State, for example, the governor of Cross River, decided to create an economic zone in Tinapa. We saw what happened under him. When he left, we saw all the scrabbles between the successive governor and then the federal government in terms of giving rights. So we already have free trade zones. I think what we should start to do, the federal government, based on the law of this land, is to energize this free trade zone to do more, but also collaborate more with the state and local governments to make every local government a center for development. This concentration of development in some place that everybody will move to and lead to problem of crowding over is something we need to start to discourage. We need to start to create entities of growth, engines of growth, catalysts of growth. The basic urban development structure of the growth pole theory, where, for example, you can say, for example, in a place like Lagos, I am going to make Ekpe, I'm going to make Ikorodu, and I'm going to make Ikeja, and I'm going to make Ojota my growth pole. And you build all of them and people start getting attracted to it. That's why, for example, somebody will live in America and tell you that he has never left California before, because he doesn't need to go and look for anything in another state. Everything is in his city. But what we have in Nigeria is that we will create centers for development and we want everybody to go there. It ain't going to happen anywhere. You got to make Please let me make this point. A senator was shot in the US. She was shot. And that senator, there was no need to carry her to an hospital outside of where she was shot. There was enough development in that community that she was treated before she moved elsewhere, and then they did other surgeries. This idea of we are centralizing something is part of one of the things that doesn't make our federation work. We got to make every part of this country a great place to live and a great place to do business.
Well said. Well said. Chika, thank you. Chika, let me bring you in on agriculture. He's talking about a new agriculture. Do we need a new agriculture policy?
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't. I wonder what will be on that script.
Right.
Because we've had so many of them. Green Revolution.
Right.
What are them?
Sugar
Man. I mean, there's so many things. Yeah. As I said, and I keep saying this program, what we'll lack is what? Diligent execution, taking ownership, entrepreneurial spirit, in the love for Nigeria, competent people who love the country to run these initiatives, seeing a project from beginning to the end. The Sugar Master Plan, nobody can bet it. It was well crafted, but where are we today? You know, even the agricultural policies that are happening now, well crafted. You know, the issue again is diligent implementation of those initiatives. So if what we're seeing today, we want to make Nigeria produce what we eat and eat what we produce, and the excess will export. It has never changed. That's not what has been happening. But the issue has to do again, how do we do it?
Can I quickly get you? We're almost out of time, but Chika, with you first. Decentralizing the police force. Do you think the states can afford to pay? We talked about this on the morning show very quickly. What do you think?
An issue of whether the country, in quote, is mature enough to deal with this.
Yes.
Because even with the federal police, we know what some people in power, how they use it to oppress those in the opposition, in quote, at a particular point in time.
Yeah.
And it cuts across both multiple parties. So I would love to know the control mechanisms that we put into that place. But do we need community policing? There's some level of community policing required.
Yes.
Because remember, intelligence is local. You know, it's very important to do that.
Yes.
But the issue is, at the end of the day, what are the firewalls we're going to put there to make sure that the people in authority do not abuse it? Because in these other places, police is independent. But over here, they tag themselves to whoever is in authority.
Got you. I mean, you get the last word. Decentralized police. What do you make of Asiwaju's plan there?
Interesting plan. Again, another of those things we say in Nigeria that we don't really define. We have already decentralized various parts of the police function. I mean, the Nigerian Constitution says there shall be a Nigerian police force, which is correct. There shall be a centralized one, but we have decentralized it. Nigerian federal government has created the FCC. It has created ICPC. Those are police functions that have been taken out of police and given to other agencies. We have started decentralizing. The states have also taken out roles from the police. For example, you have traffic warden that is a various state Ministry of Education. LASMA that controls traffic and can actually arrest and do all of those things is a police function. We already have some semblance of some decentralization. Today we have, in fact, Asiwaju was the one that revolutionized the idea of state involvement in financing the police with that very great agency started in Lagos. It has become a model. So there's already some form of decentralization. So when you say you want to decentralize what you started over 25 years ago, then I wonder what you mean by that. I think what they want is more control of the police and give the states more power. But again, the question we should ask Asiwaju is that he was a former governor, he's a member of the National Council of States, and they have a responsibility around the police. So governors have enough powers if they want to use their powers to do the policing. But you know for a fact that, and let me say that's going to be my last point, when the governor needs the police to protect his interests, he doesn't want this centralized police.
Makes sense. Thank you so much, Abayomi Fawehinmi, human resources professional, entrepreneur, Arise business analyst, Chika Mbonu. Chika, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you both, gentlemen.